They had conquered 12 star systems. They had destroyed empires. They had broken the will of entire planets. And they had done all of this without firing a single weapon. They were telepaths. Their mind readers could reach into any brain and pull out every secret, every fear, every weakness. No species had ever been able to resist them. The moment a telepath touched your mind, you belonged to them. Your thoughts were no longer your own. Your will became their will. This was how they had built their great dominion across the stars. High Inquisitor stood at the command deck of the warship Eternal Mind. She was tall and thin like all. Her skin was pale, smooth like polished stone. Her eyes were silver, with no visible pupils, and they seemed to look through everything they saw. She had served the Dominion for 300 years. She had broken the minds of kings and generals. She had made entire civilizations kneel with just her thoughts. Now she looked at the blue and green planet on the Earth, the natives called it, such a small world, such a young species. The humans had only recently discovered space travel. They had no telepaths, no mental shields, no psionic abilities of any kind. This would be easy. High Inquisitor, said her assistant, a younger named. The humans have agreed to meet us at their orbital station. They wish to discuss peace. Made a sound that might have been a laugh. Peace. How sweet. They think we have come to negotiate. Should I inform them of our true intentions? No, let them hope. It makes the breaking. The shuttle docked with the human station called Horizon. It was a simple structure, nothing compared to the grand stations of the Dominion. Walked through its narrow corridors with her 2 assistant telepaths behind her. She did not bother to hide her disgust at the primitive technology around her. The humans were waiting in a large meeting room. There were 3 of them. The first was a woman in a military uniform. She stood straight and calm, her hands clasped behind her back. Her name tag read Lieutenant. She had black hair cut short and eyes that watched everything with quiet attention. The second was a man older, with at his temples and scars on his hands. He wore the same uniform but with more decorations. His tag said Captain. He looked like a man who had seen many battles and survived them all. The third was a woman in a white coat, a scientist guest. Her tag said Doctor. She had a gentle face and carried a small device for taking notes. Such ordinary creatures had expected something more impressive from a species that had spread across their solar system, but these humans looked soft, weak, breakable. Welcome to Horizon Station, said Lieutenant. Her voice was steady, polite. We are honored to meet representatives of the Dominion. We hope this meeting will be the beginning of a friendship between our peoples. Friendship almost felt sorry for them. We require no translators, announced. She let her voice carry the authority of 3 centuries of conquest. We shall simply take what we need from your minds. She saw the humans exchange glances. They did not understand yet. They would soon. Reached out with her mind. This was the moment she loved most, the moment before the breaking, the moment when she first touched an alien consciousness and felt it tremble before her power. She found Lieutenant's mind easily. It was right there, unprotected like a house with no doors. Pushed against it gently at first, she felt the human's surface thoughts, curiosity, a little fear, hope that things would go well. How naive. Pushed deeper, she expected the usual pattern. First, she would find the memories, then the secrets, then the fears. She would pull them all out, examine them, use them. The human would try to resist, but resistance was impossible. No mind had ever kept out. She pushed past the surface and the universe exploded. That was the only way could describe it later. One moment she was in control, reaching into a simple human mind. The next moment she was drowning. Emotions hit her like physical blows. Joy and sorrow tangled together so tightly she could not tell them apart. Love so fierce it burned. Grief so deep it had no bottom. Rage and tenderness. Hope and despair. All of it all at once, flooding into her mind faster than she could process. And the memories, so many memories, not organized, not sorted, but crashing over her in waves. A child crying in hunger but laughing because her grandmother made funny faces. A teenage girl kissing a boy for the first time, terrified and thrilled. A soldier holding a dying friend, promising to remember him. A woman standing alone at a window watching rain, feeling lonely and somehow at peace. It was too much. It was all too much. Tried to pull back. She tried to close herself off. But the human mind did not fight her. It did not push her out. It simply existed, and that existence was overwhelming. It was like trying to drink an ocean, like staring into a sun. The scream that came from his throat was not a sound she had ever made before. It was pure terror, pure overload. Her silver eyes rolled back in her head. Her body began to shake violently. She collapsed to the floor. Her two assistant telepaths rushed forward. They did what any would do. They reached out mentally to stabilize her, to pull her back from whatever had taken her. The moment they touched the connection, they screamed too. One of them fell to his knees, clawing at his own face, trying to tear out images that were not his own. The other simply collapsed, his mind shutting down completely, his body going limp like a puppet with cut strings. Captain's hand moved to the weapon at his side, but Lieutenant raised her palm, stopping him. "Wait," she said. They stood there in the meeting room, 3 humans and 3 fallen. The aliens lay on the cold floor, making sounds of pain and confusion, was crying. Real tears, were not supposed to be able to cry. Lieutenant knelt beside the High Inquisitor. Her face showed no triumph, no satisfaction, only concern. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "We didn't know that would happen. Are you all right?" Looked up at the human with eyes full of terror. Her voice came out as a broken whisper. What are you?" The medical bay of Horizon Station was not designed for alien patients. The beds were too short for the tall bodies. The lights were too bright for their sensitive silver eyes. The air was too warm for their cold-blooded systems. But Doctor did her best. She had covered the lights with cloth to make them softer. She had lowered the temperature until her own breath made small clouds. She had brought extra blankets and pillows, and anything else she could think of to make the 3 fallen telepaths comfortable. The 2 assistant telepaths had woken up after a few hours. They were confused and frightened, but they could speak and move. They sat in the corner of the medical bay, refusing to look at any human, trembling whenever someone came too close. Was worse. For 3 days, the High Inquisitor lay on the medical bed, moving in and out of consciousness. Sometimes she slept quietly. Other times she screamed and thrashed, fighting against something no one else could see. She called out words in her own language. She wept. She begged for something to stop. Doctor stayed with her through all of it. On the morning of the 4th day, finally opened her eyes and kept them open. She stared at the ceiling for a long time. Then she turned her head slowly and looked at the human woman sitting beside her bed. "You stayed," whispered. Her voice was rough, broken. "Of course," said, "you were hurt, you needed care." Made a sound that was almost a laugh but came out wrong. "I came to enslave your people, to break your minds and make you serve the Dominion. And you stayed with me while I was sick." Shrugged. "You didn't actually enslave anyone, and being cruel to a sick person wouldn't change anything." They stared at her for a long moment. In 300 years of conquest, had never met anyone like this. Every species she had encountered either feared thee or hated them. Both reactions made sense, but this human woman looked at with something else entirely, something that looked almost like kindness. It made no sense. "Your mind," said slowly, "it did not fight me. I didn't know how to fight. I've never met a telepath before." "No, you don't understand. Other species, when I enter their minds, they resist. They try to push me out. They build walls. They hide their secrets, but your lieutenant, she did none of those things. Her mind simply existed, open, unguarded, And that openness, shuddered. It was too much. Leaned forward, curious. Can you explain? What did you experience? Closed her silver eyes. When she spoke again, her voice was quiet, almost afraid. I have touched 10,000 minds in my lifetime, peaceful species, warlike species, hive minds that think as one, individuals who stand alone. All of them had order, structure. Their thoughts were organized. Their emotions were separate from their memories. Everything had its place. She opened her eyes and looked at with something like wonder. Your lieutenant's mind was chaos, beautiful, terrible chaos. Every thought was connected to 100 emotions. Every memory was tied to feelings that should have been separate. I reached for her secrets and found them wrapped in love and shame and pride all at once. I searched for her fears and found them holding hands with her hopes. His hands were shaking, reached out and held one gently, that did not pull away. Tell me something, said. What specifically did you see, if you can talk about it? Was quiet for a moment, then she began to speak. I saw her as a child. She was hungry, her family was poor. They often did not have enough food. This should be a painful memory, yes, a dark one, but in her mind it glowed with warmth, because her grandmother was there. Her grandmother had nothing to give her except stories and songs, yet somehow that was enough. The hunger and the happiness existed together in the same moment, in the same memory. This should not be possible. Smiled softly. That's just how humans work. There was more. I saw her first love, a boy she met when she was young. They were together for 2 years, then he left her for someone else. The pain of that moment was sharp like a knife. I felt it cut through her, yet next to the pain, right beside it, was gratitude. She was grateful for the time they had, grateful for what he taught her about herself. How can you be grateful to someone who hurt you? It's complicated, admitted. I saw her kill a man. His voice dropped lower. In a battle 3 years ago, she did what she had to do. She saved her team, but she still dreams about his face. She still wonders if he had a family. She still carries guilt for taking his life, even though he was trying to take hers. And yet, she would do it again if she had to protect the people she loves. The guilt does not stop her. It lives alongside her duty, neither one destroying the other. Nodded slowly. We call that being human. It is madness, said, but there was no anger in her voice, only exhaustion and something that might have been awe. Your species holds contradictions that should tear a mind apart. You love and hate the same things. You hope when there is no reason to hope. You fight to survive and then sacrifice yourselves for strangers. You know you will die, yet you build things that will last beyond your deaths. You are alone in your own skulls, unable to truly share your thoughts with anyone, yet you form bonds so strong that you would die for them. She looked at with tears in her silver eyes. How do you survive yourselves? Thought about the question seriously. I don't know if we do, really. We struggle. We break sometimes. We put ourselves back together as best we can. We lean on each other. We find moments of joy where we can and hold on to them. We tell ourselves stories about why it all matters, and sometimes we believe them. That is not an answer. Maybe there isn't a good answer. Maybe that's part of being human too. Lay back on her pillow and stared at the ceiling again. My people have always believed we were superior to other species. Our minds are ordered, controlled. We do not feel things the way you do. We thought this made us stronger. We thought other species were weak because they felt so much. And now I wonder if we have been looking at everything backwards. Perhaps your chaos is not weakness. Perhaps it is a kind of strength we never understood. To hold so many contradictions and not break, that requires something my people do not have. The door to the medical bay opened. Lieutenant walked in, carrying a tray with food and water. Doctor, you've been here all night again. You need to eat. She set the tray down and then noticed that was awake. Oh, hello, how are you feeling? Looked at the human woman whose mind had nearly destroyed her. She saw no fear in those calm eyes, no hatred, only polite concern for strangers. You are not afraid of me, said. Considered this, should I be? I tried to break into your mind. I tried to read your secrets without permission. On most worlds, this would be considered an attack. On most worlds, maybe, but you didn't actually hurt me, and it seems like I hurt you instead even though I didn't mean to," smiled slightly. "So really, maybe you should be afraid of me." Stared at her. Then, for the first time since waking up, she laughed. It was a weak sound, broken and confused, but it was real. "Your species is insane," she said. "Probably," agreed, "but it's worked out for us so far." The message from the High Council arrived on a beam of light that crossed half the galaxy. Elder's face appeared on the communication screen, his silver eyes cold with ancient authority. He had ruled the Dominion for 800 years. In all that time, he had never received a report like this one. "3 of our telepaths," he said, his voice like ice. "3 of our most skilled mind readers. And you tell me they were all defeated by a single human woman who was not even trying to fight." Admiral stood before the screen, her head bowed in shame. "That is what the reports say, Elder." "Impossible. High Inquisitor has broken the minds of emperors. She has made civilizations surrender without a single shot fired. And you expect me to believe that some primitive human accidentally destroyed her?" "I do not expect you to believe anything, Elder. I simply report what happened." Was silent for a long moment. His silver eyes narrowed. "Has been compromised. The humans must have some weapon we do not understand, some technology that affects the mind. Send a full Inquisition team, 12 telepaths. If one human can break 3 of ours, let us see what 12 can do." "As you command, Elder." The 12 telepaths arrived at Horizon Station 1 week later. They were the best the Dominion had. Mind breakers who had crushed entire rebellions with their thoughts alone. They walked onto the station with the confidence of conquerors, certain that whatever had happened to was a mistake that would not be repeated. Captain met them at the airlock. Behind him stood a group of ordinary human crew members, scientists, engineers, a cook, a maintenance worker, regular people with regular jobs. "We don't want trouble," said calmly. "We've seen what happens when your people try to read our minds. We're asking you not to do it." The lead telepath, unnamed, smiled with contempt. "You do not give orders to the Dominion, human. Step aside." He reached out with his mind, pushing into his thoughts, expecting to find the same chaos that had described, ready to push through it by force. He was wrong. The chaos was not something you could push through. It was not a wall to be broken or a door to be opened. It was an ocean with no bottom. It was a storm with no end. The moment touched his mind, he felt himself falling into something vast and deep and utterly overwhelming. He saw a young boy watching his father beat his mother. He felt the rage and the fear and the helplessness all mixed together. He saw that same boy, years later, becoming a soldier to protect others the way he could not protect her. He felt the pride and the guilt and the determination burning like fire. He saw a man burying his best friend after a battle. He felt the grief that had no words. He saw that same man laughing at a joke the next day, forcing himself to keep living because that's what his friend would have wanted. The grief and the laughter existed together. Neither one canceled the other. He saw 1,000 moments like these, memories soaked in emotion, thoughts wrapped in feelings that contradicted each other, joy and pain holding hands, love and loss living in the same breath. Screamed and fell. The other 11 telepaths rushed to help him, reaching out with their minds to pull him back, and one by one, they touched the edges of human consciousness. One by one they fell. Some screamed, some went silent, some shook and cried. One laughed uncontrollably, caught in some memory of human joy that was too bright for him to handle. Another curled into a ball, overwhelmed by a grief that was not his own but felt completely real. In less than 5 minutes, all 12 of the Dominion's greatest telepaths lay on the floor of the airlock, broken by minds that had not even tried to fight them. Captain looked down at the fallen aliens. His face showed no satisfaction, no pride in victory, only sadness. "I tried to warn you," he said quietly. The report that went back to Elder was even worse than the first one. 12 telepaths, all of them defeated, not by weapons, not by technology, not by any kind of resistance, simply by contact with human minds. The High Council met in emergency session. For the first time in 800 years, they did not know what to do. "We cannot conquer a species we cannot read," said one elder. "Our entire strategy depends on telepathy. Without it, we would need to fight them with ships and soldiers, and we have never developed those things because we never needed them." "Then develop them now," said another. "It would take centuries, and we do not know what other surprises the humans might have. What if their chaos can be projected? What if they can learn to use it as a weapon?" Fear spread through the council chambers. For 1,000 years, they had been the ones who caused fear. Now, for the first time, they felt it themselves. Back on Horizon Station, something unexpected was happening. The 12 fallen telepaths had been moved to the medical bay, where Doctor and her team cared for them the same way they had cared for: clean beds, soft lights, gentle voices, water and food when they could eat. The humans did not gloat, they did not take prisoners, they did not make demands, they simply helped. One of the telepaths, a young female named, woke up crying. She had seen something in the mind of the cook, a memory of the cook's mother dying slowly from a disease. The grief was unbearable. The cook had carried it for 10 years, and she still got up every morning and made breakfast for the crew with a smile on her face. "How?" asked the cook, whose name was Bora. "How do you carry that weight and still live?" Bora sat beside the alien's bed. She was a small woman with kind eyes and flowers still on her apron. She thought about the question seriously. "I don't know," she admitted. "I just do. Some days are harder than others. Some days I miss her so much I can barely breathe. But then I make something she taught me to make, her special soup or her bread with the honey, and I feel her with me again. The sadness doesn't go away, but the love doesn't go away either. They're both there all the time." That sounds exhausting. It is sometimes, but it's also beautiful, I think. All those feelings, all that experience, good and bad together, it means I'm alive. It means she mattered, it means something. Did not fully understand, but she wanted to. In her own room was getting stronger. She had asked to speak with Lieutenant again. Not to read her mind, never that, but just to talk. To try to understand through words what she had glimpsed in that terrible moment of contact. "I need to ask you something," said when arrived. "In your mind, among all the chaos, I saw a small, quiet thing, a feeling you had when you first saw us walk onto the station." "What feeling?" "Excitement, hope, joy, despite everything, despite knowing we might be dangerous, despite the risk to your world, you were happy to meet us. You were curious about us. You wanted to be our friend." Looked a little embarrassed. "I grew up reading stories about aliens. Meeting real ones was kind of a dream come true. We came to enslave you. But you didn't, and now we're here talking like people instead of enemies. Isn't that better?" Did not have an answer. In her entire long life, she had never imagined a conversation like this one. She had conquered. She had broken. She had made others serve. But she had never simply talked with someone from another species as if they were equals. It was strange. It was confusing. It was wonderful. The fleet hung in space above Earth like a threat made of metal and light. 50 warships, each one capable of destroying a city from orbit. Admiral stood on the command deck of the flagship, looking down at the blue planet below. She had orders from the High Council. If telepathy would not work, then they would try force. They would bombard Earth's cities until the humans surrendered. They would show the galaxy that the Dominion was still powerful, still dangerous, still worthy of fear. But hesitated. She had read the reports from Horizon Station. She had seen the recordings of her telepaths falling, one after another, defeated by nothing more than contact with human minds. And she had seen something else too, something that the official reports did not mention. She had seen humans caring for fallen. She had seen doctors staying awake for 3 days to watch over. She had seen the cook bringing soup to sick telepaths who had come to enslave her world. She had seen Captain warning her people, trying to prevent them from hurting themselves. The humans had every reason to hate them, every reason to let them suffer, every reason to turn them into prisoners or bargaining chips. Instead, they had shown kindness. It made no sense, and yet somehow it changed everything. "Admiral," said her communications officer, "we are receiving a message from the human station. Captain is requesting permission to speak with you." Almost refused. What was there to talk about? But something stopped her, curiosity perhaps, or maybe something else. "Put him through." Captain's face appeared on the screen. He looked tired but calm. Behind him could see the interior of Horizon Station, could see and humans walking together in the corridors, could see sitting at a table with Lieutenant, talking like old friends. "Admiral," said, "I know why your fleet is here. I know what your orders must be. Before you do anything, I want to offer you something." "What could you possibly offer us?" "Understanding." Frowned, explain. "Your telepaths came to break us. Instead, they were broken, but not destroyed, broken open. They saw things inside our minds that they had never imagined, feelings they didn't know existed, ways of being alive that your species never developed. And now they're asking questions. Now they're curious. Now they want to learn." Leaned forward, his eyes serious. "We don't want war with you, Admiral. We never did. Your Inquisitor tried to take our thoughts by force, and we're sorry for what happened to her. We didn't know our minds would hurt your people. We didn't mean to cause pain. You apologize, after what we intended to do to your species. You didn't actually do it, and your people are suffering now because of something we are, not something we chose. Why would we be cruel about that?" Was silent for a long moment. In 800 years of serving the Dominion, she had negotiated with many species. All of them had feared all of them had hated all of them had looked at her with eyes full of terror or anger. Captain looked at her with something else, something she could not name. It was not fear, it was not hatred, it almost looked like respect, like he saw her as a person, not just an enemy. "What exactly are you proposing?" she asked finally. "Come to the station, not as conquerors, as guests. Talk to your people who have been here, see what they've experienced. Then make your decision about what to do next. You would let me onto your station after we threatened to destroy your world." Smiled slightly. "You haven't destroyed it yet, and talking seems better than bombing." Against all her training, against all her experience, Admiral agreed. She came to the station alone, without guards, as a sign of good faith. Captain met her at the airlock, and together they walked through the corridors of Horizon Station. What she saw there changed her. In the medical bay, she found her telepaths recovering, not as prisoners but as patients. Doctor moved between their beds, checking their vital signs, adjusting their treatments, speaking to them in gentle tones. When saw, she smiled warmly. "Admiral, your people are doing much better today." Was able to walk around the room this morning, and asked for something to read. We've been teaching him about human poetry. "Poetry?" said confused. He wanted to understand human emotions better. Poetry seemed like a good place to start. In the common room, she found more surprises. The cook Bora was teaching one of the telepaths how to make bread. Their hands were covered in flour, and the telepath was laughing, actually laughing, at a joke Bora had made. "The trick is not to think too much," Bora was saying. "Just feel the dough, let your hands know what to do." "But I always think," the telepath protested. "That is what do, we think and analyze and calculate." "Well, try not thinking for once. Just be here in this moment with the flour and the water and the smell of the yeast. Just be." The telepath closed her eyes and tried. Her movements became smoother. The bread began to take shape under her hands. When she opened her eyes again, they were wet with silver tears. "I understand now," she whispered. "This is what humans have, this presence, this now." Watched in silence, struggling to process what she was seeing. Finally she found. The High Inquisitor was sitting in a small garden that the humans had built inside the station. Plants from Earth grew in carefully tended beds. A small fountain made soft sounds in the corner. Lieutenant sat beside her, and they were talking quietly. Said, "I need to understand. What happened to you? What did you see in their minds?" Looked up at the Admiral. Her silver eyes were different now. Softer somehow, more open. "I saw everything," she said. "I saw pain that should have destroyed them and didn't. I saw joy that had no logical source but existed anyway. I saw love that made no sense, sacrifice that had no benefit, hope that had no foundation. I saw creatures who know they will die and choose to live fully anyway, who know they are small in a vast universe and decide to matter anyway." She stood and walked to the fountain, letting her fingers trail in the water. "We thought we were conquerors, Admiral. We thought we were taking things from lesser species, but we never took anything real. We took secrets and strategies, yes. We took control. But we never took what the humans have. We never even knew it existed." "What do they have?" Turned to face her. "Life, real life. Messy and painful and beautiful and contradictory. They feel things we cannot imagine. They hold opposites together without breaking. They are chaos, yes, but it is a chaos that creates meaning, a chaos that makes existence worth having." She looked at who smiled back at her. "I don't want to go back to what I was," said quietly. "I don't want to break minds anymore. I want to learn. I want to understand. I want to feel what they feel even if it hurts, especially if it hurts, because the pain is part of what makes everything else real." Stood very still for a long time. She thought about her orders. She thought about the fleet waiting above. She thought about everything she had believed for 800 years. Then she thought about the cook teaching a telepath to make bread, about the scientist caring for patients who had come to enslave her, about the soldier who warned her enemies away from danger instead of leading them into it. "I need to contact the High Council," she said finally. "What will you tell them?" Took a deep breath. "I will tell them that we cannot conquer this world, not because they are stronger than us, but because they are something we don't understand, something we need to learn from, not destroy." She looked at Captain, who had followed her through the station. "I believe you mentioned something about peace." The fleet had gone home without firing a single shot. The High Council had argued for months about what to do. Elder had demanded punishment, demanded conquest, demanded that the Dominion show its strength. But too many others had heard the reports. Too many had seen the recordings. Too many had talked to the telepaths who returned from Earth changed in ways that could not be undone. In the end, they chose peace, not because they were weak, not because they were afraid, but because, for the first time in their long history, they were curious. Trade agreements were signed. Embassies were opened. Slowly, carefully, two species that had almost been enemies began to learn about each other instead. The University of Seoul was crowded that autumn morning. Students hurried across the campus, carrying books and tablets, talking and laughing and complaining about their classes. Among them walked a figure that still drew stares, tall and thin, with skin and silver eyes hidden behind dark glasses. Had been living on Earth for 3 years now. She was still getting used to it. The noise, the crowds, the endless variety of human behavior. Some days it overwhelmed her. Some days she wanted to hide in her small apartment and not come out. But other days she saw something beautiful, a couple holding hands in the park, a child laughing at a street performer, an old man feeding birds with patient devotion, and she understood why she had stayed. "Wait up." She turned to see a young human woman running toward her. Was in her second year of xenobiology, and she had appointed herself's unofficial guide to human life. She was short, loud, and full of energy that found both exhausting and wonderful. "You walk too fast," complained, falling into step beside her. "Those long legs are unfair." "I apologize. I will try to walk slower." "Don't apologize, I'm just whining, it's what humans do," grinned up at her. "Ready for Professor's lecture. He's talking about first contact scenarios today, very relevant to your life story." Made a sound that humans had taught her was called a snort. "I lived through a first contact scenario. I do not need a lecture about it." "But it'll be funny to watch his face when you correct him." They walked together toward the lecture hall and thought about how strange her life had become. 5 years ago, she had been High Inquisitor of the Dominion. She had broken minds across 12 star systems. She had been feared by millions. Now she was a student, learning about human history and culture, trying to understand the species that had accidentally destroyed everything she thought she knew. She did not regret it, not for a moment. The lecture hall was full when they arrived. Humans of all ages, some alien students from other species, and a few other who had followed path to Earth. They found seats near the back and tried to make herself small, which was difficult when you were almost 2 meters tall. Professor was a small man with white hair and a loud voice. He talked for an hour about the challenges of communication between species, about the mistakes that had been made throughout history, about the wars that had started because of misunderstanding. Then he talked about Earth's first contact with the... "What made this case unique," he said, "was that both sides were completely wrong about each other. The thought humans were simple creatures with no mental defenses. They assumed our minds would be easy to read and control. The humans thought there were invaders who needed to be fought with weapons and strategies." He smiled slightly. "In the end, no one fought anyone. They were defeated by human consciousness itself, by the sheer complexity and emotional depth of human minds. And the humans discovered that their enemies were capable of change, of growth, of learning." A student raised her hand. "Professor, do you think they would have conquered us if their telepathy had worked?" "Probably," Professor admitted, "but their telepathy couldn't work, not on us. And that's the interesting question, isn't it? Why couldn't it?" He looked around the room, and his eyes found in the back row. "Perhaps our guest can explain. Miss, would you mind sharing your perspective?" Every head in the room turned to look at her, felt her skin flush, a reaction she had developed from spending too much time around humans, but she stood up anyway. "Your minds are different from ours," she said, her voice carrying easily in the quiet room. "Thoughts are organized, logical. We separate our emotions from our memories, our desires from our duties. We can examine each piece of ourselves independently. This is what allows us to read other minds. We find the same organization and follow it." She paused, remembering that terrible moment when she had first touched Lieutenant's consciousness. "Human minds are not organized. They are chaos, but it is not empty chaos. It is full chaos. Every thought is connected to every emotion. Every memory holds multiple feelings at once. Joy and sorrow exist in the same moment. Love and fear hold hands. When I touched a human mind, I did not find organization. I found everything all at once, all together. It was like trying to drink an ocean, like staring into a sun." She looked at the students, human and alien alike, watching her with fascination. "But I have learned something in my years among you. Your chaos is not weakness, it is strength. You hold contradictions that would destroy other minds and you survive them. You carry pain and still find joy. You know you will die and still choose to love. This is not madness. This is courage. This is what it truly means to be alive." She sat down. The room was silent for a moment. Then slowly someone started clapping. Then more joined in. Soon the whole lecture hall was applauding. Did not know what to do with applause. She had never received it before. Leaned over and whispered, "That was beautiful. I only spoke the truth. Sometimes the truth is beautiful." After the lecture, walked alone through the campus gardens. She needed quiet after so much attention. The autumn leaves were falling, red and gold and brown, and she caught one in her hand. It was dying, this leaf, falling from its tree to rot on the ground. But it was also beautiful, perhaps the most beautiful thing she had seen all day. A message beeped on her communication device. She looked at it and smiled. It was from. After 5 years, they still talked regularly. Had been promoted to commander and was now training the next generation of officers in first contact protocols. Her training included an entire section on dealing with telepathic species, based on what she had learned from. Coffee tomorrow, the message read. The usual place, I have news. Sent back a single word, yes. She thought about the journey that had brought her here, from conqueror to student, from mind-breaker to friend, from certainty to wonder. She thought about everything she had lost, her position, her power, her old understanding of the universe. And she thought about everything she had gained. The Dominion still existed. It still ruled 12 star systems, but it was changing. Slowly, carefully, telepaths were learning to ask permission before reading minds. Trade was replacing conquest. Understanding was beginning to replace fear. It would take generations to undo 1,000 years of empire. But it had started. It had started with a single moment of contact that had gone terribly, wonderfully wrong. Looked up at the sky. Somewhere out there, among the stars, her people were learning to see other species not as prey but as possibilities, not as minds to break but as worlds to explore. And it had all begun because a human woman named had greeted an invader with curiosity instead of fear, had responded to aggression with concern, had treated an enemy as a person worth saving. In the end, humanity's greatest weapon was not their chaotic minds. It was not their ability to hold contradictions or survive pain. It was something simpler than that, something they had never understood because they had never experienced it. It was kindness. It was the choice to see strangers as potential friends, to believe that others can change, to offer help instead of harm, understanding instead of judgment. Had spent 300 years conquering the galaxy. Now she spent her days learning to bake bread with a cook named Bora, discussing poetry with a student named, and drinking coffee with a friend named. It was, she had decided, a much better way to live. The leaf in her hand crumbled slightly as she held it. Dying, beautiful, temporary, like all things, like all beings, like life itself. She smiled and kept walking. Just another strange figure on a campus full of strange figures, in a world that had taught her what it meant to be truly alive. And somewhere in the vast reaches of space, the stars continued to shine on two species learning, slowly and imperfectly, to be something better than they had been before. Together,